Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies, where tonight's going to be a very interesting night, as it is each and every single week here at Talk Junkies. We got Johnny, Jesse in the house. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good, man.
Doing well.
Good to be back. Feel like I haven't been on here in a hot minute. None of us have, really, but...
No, it's Chief Sundays ruin it, man, for us.
Yeah.
So it's fine, man. It's that time of year. It's all good. I'm glad to have you guys in those seats. That's all that matters right now in the moment in time. If you guys are interested, the last podcast we did was with Chris Cherico. He's a lawyer out of North Carolina, a tax lawyer. Jesse and I had the opportunity to talk with him and have a nice chat. There was some good, interesting takes on what taxes do and what they are and how it's implemented in the society today that we live in. I re-listened to it, and it was pretty interesting what Chris had to say. I think if we had him on again, we could get a little more out of him, maybe the dark secrets.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch with taxes on that.
I'm really glad you guys talked about taxes with the tax expert.
Yeah.
It's just funny. You said the tax expert. We talked about taxes, and now it's just I want us to have a segment where you bring on a tax expert and you talk about taxes. Romantic advice.
We could try that.
And then, you
Yeah.
have a psychologist and you talk about your favorite kind of cereal.
Well, Chris looked like a romantic, though.
He did.
Anyways, if you guys are interested in taxes, check out that podcast. It's on all the good stuff. Tonight, we're going to be talking with a gentleman who I've got the pleasure to meet today. He drove a far amount of time to come see us here in Kansas City, and I'm greatly appreciative of that. Met him through a gentleman that I don't work with, but I met him at work. His name's Paul. So Paul, thank you for that, because I know you're going to be listening to this podcast. Appreciate you, my man, for the connection. But this gentleman here, who's sitting right in front of me, is doing a lot of big things out in Kentucky, man. And we are really big on local politics. Not when I say big, we've always been aspired to find out how to do it, how to get involved, how to be a part of it. And I think we brought on the right person to do that tonight. John, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining.
I'm doing good. Appreciate you for having me.
Right on, man. So you said 8-hour drive. Well, it turned into a little bit longer, but
yeah, it's like 7.5, something like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out, man. That's crazy and appreciative of you to come out, see the setup, be a part of Talk Junkies. Again, greatly appreciative of that.
I appreciate y'all for having me. Nice to meet all y'all.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. You got your own podcast. What's that all about? And what's a little bit of your journey, man, in your story right now?
Yeah, so I do have my own podcast. It's called Way2muchJRMC. It stands for John Ross Marcus Cox. My mom knew I was going to have that kind of swagger when I was born, so she gave me 4 names. I'm one of those dudes. I'm actually named after the show Dallas. That's why I'm John Ross. So just don't call me JR. My mom would get pissed. But yeah, so I do we'll say political, cultural, podcast. It didn't start out there. I told you I had no ambitions or intent on trying to go hard in that space. But I got started back when all the mask mandates and everything were going on, and I've already told y'all this story, but I'll tell the audience here as well. But I really got going because I coach youth sports, basketball, baseball, football, you name it. My girls soccer teams, and they started trying to put my kids back in masks. My basketball team last November, in Kentucky, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to navigate it and how when I would make them wear masks and all this. And my wife was just like, "Listen, I thought I married a crazy redneck." You know what I mean? That was going to fight for our family, and that wasn't going to just bend over and take whatever the state was trying to give him or what his boss was going to do or whatever. And it just kind of challenged me. And I literally sat there. We was in the kitchen. It was 12:30 in the morning, 12:30 a.m. or whatever. Kids were asleep. And I started crying. I mean, I was a grown man, and I was just it hit me, it just punched me in the gut, because I realized oh my gosh, I really am being soft. You know what I mean? I want to coach sports so bad. I'm willing to just show what kind of example am I setting for those kids, for my own son. I'm kind of leader in the community am I being? And so kind of looked up at her and I was like, hey, well, all right, I'll do it, but I don't do anything. I don't do anything half. I can cuss on here, right?
Oh yeah, okay. For sure.
I don't do anything half-ass. And I was like, I just want to make sure what you're asking, what you're telling me to do. And she was like, I do. Do whatever you got to do, whatever time it takes, whatever. It's good. We got to get rid of these masks. And so I started just going to Republican meetings and really just trying to get the lay of the land. I was one of those dudes, and she was one of those gals that we thought we were like in tune with politics, but really we were just like reading national news articles and watching national shows and watching Tucker and Shapiro and that kind of stuff. And we realized real quick, like, we don't even know who to go to over like a mask mandate, or like what the titles of some of these elected officials, like what is that? What's a magistrate? You know what I mean? What's like what's somebody on the city council that we had no idea. And so I just realized, like, okay, I gotta be like a kindergartner and just like dive in, and I think at a ground level. And so I thought I was gonna run for school board. Got shouted down at like the first meeting where someone that was already an elected official was like, he can't win, and I was fine, like, dude, I'm not saying I'm like the best person for the job ever. I'm just like this is my first meeting, like, chill out, you know what I mean? Like, I'm about to burrow into a hole over here, and like,
so he was like shitting on you.
Yeah. Like,
he was doing the whole politician, like, attacking, like, you.
But it wasn't
like, it would be a detriment to the community if you would have gotten that position.
But if I was the nominee, I just couldn't win. Like, I took it personal because I'm redneck and I take everything personal, and wanted to like, I was trying to like slash his tires afterwards and stuff. Kia's car and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, and me and him, and so long story short about him, I make that joke and talk trash about him because we've kind of came full circle along the way, and our little our relationship is kind of about as American as it gets, because went from that to like over the last 11 months we've both been earning each other's trust and each other's respect, and like he knows, like, they're just so used to people saying they're going to do stuff, showing up a couple times, and then just disappearing. You know what I mean? And we'll get to that later, probably, about some of what the real issues are that's plaguing so many state legislatures. And so started out those meetings, and then finally realized that, I was like, man, there's a whole lot of talk and there ain't no action out here. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't the most educated person, but I know you got to have a game plan, like a strategy. You got to have something written down on like how you're going to go about attacking things and what strategy you're going to use. And everybody was just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it stuck. And so I started like a little matrix of like bill sponsors and what bills were out there trying to get rid of mandates, and found the overlap and started going to the like legislature and trying to garner some support for one of those bills, and it ended up just like rewriting one of them, and like got it filed. And so it was like, it's been a wild experience. Like I make the joke that I think I was like, it started out, I think I was everybody's like slum friend in the building. Everybody's like, it'd be fun to have a party. I'm gonna get to know him a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll call him and I'm like, want to get drunk or something. And I think it started out like that, and I kept coming back, and all of a sudden they were like, oh shit, this dude's for real. He knows way too much now. You know what I mean? Like, I texted him the other night when I was hammered, and I shouldn't have. I think it kind of got to that point. And so, no, but I say that in jest, but I got to give him credit. I've gotten to know probably the majority of our state legislature.
So where are you at in Kentucky?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, but I want to make sure everybody knows I ain't from there.
Okay. All right.
All right. Like, I ain't saying it's a bad place, but like, I was telling Paul that I lived out here for 6 months, and we had to move back because I was like, Kentucky just in my blood. I just lost everything about my identity. Yeah. When I was like out here listening to Jamie Johnson, like dark country music, you know what I mean? And like smoking Pall Malls on the back porch. Yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, so you operate out of that type, and those politics is in Louisville.
So that's where it started, but now I'm like, it's all, I'm dealing with people all over the state.
Okay.
But so I'm from, like I said, I'm from Southeast Kentucky. My stepdad still works he still works in the coal mines. My biological father, he probably would have said he was a coal miner, but he never did nothing. He never had like a job or anything. You know what I mean? Just be honest with him.
Well, about it. So like when you talk about, so you got involved with the mask mandates and you went to the meetings, what you were saying is you helped sponsor a bill to get the mask mandates out of the education system or the YMCA, like you were talking about.
Yeah. Well, virtually, but I'm saying this right now because I know the goal of this is to show people how to get involved. I didn't like try to get. I rewrote the bad boy in like Microsoft Word. You know what I mean? And I had like another guy that was, what's the guy's name that was on here? We just talked about Pat.
Yeah.
I had a guy in Kentucky that would, once I'd gotten support for my language, I went to him and was like, hey, like, we got to make this sound like a bill. You know, I've got like, it's like, I've got like indents on here. You know what I mean? And so, you know, he went and made it, you know, that way. But I mean, that exact language got filed.
So he added the whereas.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I wasn't putting any of that in there. But yeah, so that's where it started. But it went from real quick from you going. I mean, I went in the first day and we got laughed out of the building from like our Louisville people. They're like, there's no way that we're going to get support for this.
So what was it like when you walked in? How was that process? Because I remember on the phone you were telling me like you didn't think a civilian could just walk in.
I didn't think you could. I think a civilian just walk in. I mean, I was.
That's my big thing is the whole you want to talk about like how people get started thing. It sounds dumb to say out loud, but I mean legitimately, how do you get started? Is in where are you going, and how do you decide that that's the time that you're approaching that, and it's like, okay, it's my turn to talk to these people, kind of thing.
Well, for me, like I will say this: we talking about some spiritual stuff before this, like. Something weird was happening. I'm gonna be honest, like, you know, I'm a Christian, whatever, but obviously I told you I got a dirty mouth and all that, so I ain't trying to act like I'm what Franklin Graham or whatever in here, Billy Graham. But like, I can't really explain how it all went down. It's like I was just meeting, just talking to everybody. People were like calling me that. So, that didn't start out like that. First of all, you definitely got to have something that you're interested in. You got to have like a purpose. You know, goals.
Got to have the drive.
You know, it's just like I ain't trying to be a lobbyist. Lobbyists are literally like, they are lobbyists by trade, and it doesn't matter to them what they're lobbying for. Like, an industry calls and says, we want this, and we'll pay you this, and they develop a strategy to get that in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, it was like trying to get rid of masks. Like, I'm just tired of what we're doing in schools, and you know, but I could get in there and I could tell there was no organization or whatever. And like half the state was worried about masks, half the state was worried about vaccines, half the state was worried about how much money we were spending on testing. So I actually made the bill all of that. So it had gotten rid of like mask, vaccine mandates, test, like we call it test to play and test to stay. Like they were literally testing kids every single day.
Are there just real quick question from like a layman, because my kid's only 5 months old, so I haven't had to deal with this issue yet. Do they have COVID vaccines mandates for kids to go to school now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
They're working on it.
The key's not yet. I mean, now older kids, I think they're in some states they have if you're like over 13 or something. If once they've been approved, I know in California they had if you're like 13 and older or something.
We were really worried about the industry that we work in, that we were going to have a vaccine
that was a thing
just
for a while,
to work in what I'm working in, and I was like, fuck that.
That was OSHA came out with some stuff last year. It was the beginning of this year where it's supposed to be implemented, where anyone who was working in the United States had to be vaccinated. Yeah, I remember that.
That shit scares the fuck out of me.
Yeah,
the mandated COVID vaccine for that. Anyway, sorry, I'm going to let you.
You know, I mean that's exactly,
and that's kind of, you're preventing that snowballing effect to get to that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bigger vaccine worry is from an employer standpoint. You know what I mean? That's really where, then we had other politicians that were just worried about employers. And so they would have bills for employers that had like carve outs for where schools could still have mitigation measures in place. And I was like, why is everybody trying to appease each other whenever all of you want to do all of it? So let's just do it. You know what I mean? And so it like literally took months and months to sell that message. But again, back to the very beginning, you got to have like something you're trying to do. And then, like, I mean, I literally just started calling people and was like asking for their office, you know, and like, I'd be like, get on the phone and be like, hey, this is John Cox. And at the time I was associated with I won't say little, it was like a 3,800 member Facebook, like parents group. But I'd say I'm with such and such out of Jefferson County, but like most of these people weren't from Jefferson County, so they didn't care. But like, you know, I just schmooze them up a little bit and all shucks and golly them. You know, give them and I talk I'm in sales, I was in insurance for 16 years. I just talk so fast. I think sometimes they're like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like holy shit, this dude talks I don't even know what he said. So I just I gotta go to the next step with him. And so I just be like, I'm like proposing times, like, hey, when would work for them? Me, I'll be over there this time. Which one? I'll be like, okay.
Get back to me at this time. Well, that sounded really fucking important. I have no idea what he said, but he needs a call back.
And I'd be like, what's your email? I'm going to send you over a calendar invite. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like just taking all the guesswork out of it. And that just kept, but again, there was no, I don't remember a time where I felt like, okay, we're getting it rolling. I mean, I really had to I had to like gut check myself every day because it was, at least at the very beginning, I was really at risk of looking like an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like me, the Chamber of Commerce, like Kentucky Hospital Association, PETA, maybe like, I don't know.
PETA was involved?
Well, like there's like, I don't know why there was like all kinds of like animal cruelty bills up this last time. I don't know what it was, but it was like 4 lobby groups and me. That was it in the whole building. I was the only civilian in the building ever. And so like, I kind of got it at the right time, I guess. And
so what building were you in? Sorry.
It's like so Frankfort, Kentucky is the state capital.
Okay.
They have like, it's called the Annex, where they all have their offices or whatever.
So you're in the Capitol. You're at Capitol Hill, essentially.
Yeah.
Inside their building, where all the laws are passed and all that stuff in the state of Kentucky. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, it's like, so you have the Capitol building where they have their chamber, and it looks all like, 1770, 60.
Yeah.
And then you have the one over here. It's like an old 1985 building where they're all there. They have no windows in their offices or anything like that. But yeah, you can just like walk in. You got to go through like a metal detector or whatever. And like I do think there was some magic because they eventually became like everybody finally realized like I wasn't getting paid. I was like making sure everybody knew that like I ain't a lobbyist. I'm just like a dad down here, like wasting my time talking to y'all. And so like I was obviously upset with the politicians. They were letting all this stuff go on and everything, but I actually like pretty quickly all my like animosity towards them kind of stopped. I kind of went away because like I was confronted with all these realities that all the assumptions we have as like regular, normies they were all incorrect. I mean, I assumed that all these reps had like Nancy Pelosi budgets and had like multiple staffers and comms directors and just all this stuff. You know what I mean? And like, I realized like, oh my goodness, they don't have anybody. They have like one assistant though. Like 6 of them will share one assistant to help with their calendar, but that assistant is like from Kentucky State. You know what I mean? It's like an intern. They don't know anything. They literally are doing like their Outlook calendar. So they have no one to help them, like read bills, explain bills to them, like to get information from one legislator to another. And so I'm like going back and forth. I morphed into this, like, this is where the podcast stuff come into play. I had all these people I was calling every day on the way home. So it was like a 45-minute drive. My talk time was I was down there every day from like, I don't know, 8 or 9 until 5 p.m. And then I'd be sitting out in my driveway at 9, still calling all these groups around the state, trying to tell them what happened that day and everything. And I was finally like, I can't do this anymore. So I started live streaming to Facebook, and like uploading it to all the groups and everything. And that kind of turned into like, I think I could probably do something else with this. And we talk about that later. But I was doing it with my buddy, and it turned into me doing it solo. But yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of misconceptions, and I ain't trying to let them off the hook because they ran. You know what I mean? But like, they run and win, and there's not like a legislator 101 or something where you even get like the bare bones. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's how you submit a bill. here's how you write an amendment. Here's how you.
But it all works the same. Like, they're in session for a certain period of time, then they're out of session during holiday weekends. All so that.
We're a part-time legislature, so we're only in session for. It's a 60-day session on even. Yeah, on even years, it's 60-day session. On odd years, it's 30 days.
Holy shit!
So, but now
what do you get done in a state in 30 days?
Well, it's 30 legislative days. So they'll spread those out.
Okay.
So like it'll be from like January 1. I think they have to be done by April 15th. So, but it's exactly right. I mean, like, so they're part-time. So obviously they don't have a bunch of staff because they don't. Who's going to take who's a highly qualified individual that's going to take that kind of a staffing position. It's going to last for 4 months and then have to go try to find another job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It almost seems like they're set up for failure even at the beginning. Like, I mean, if there's no, I mean, that's all state funded. That's not federal funded, or is it federal?
I mean, it's state.
Okay. So I mean, even in that aspect, yeah, that's crazy. I never would have thought that. You're right. I had pre-assumptions of what it's like to go down there. I think Missouri might be a little more well organized than Kentucky. I think it's a little bit bigger of a state. I'm not sure, but
once again, that could just be an assumption, though.
I bet
Who
that's
knows
true,
till you
yeah.
get there?
I bet if we talked to Pat, he would probably tell you that I'm not far off. Now, I said I don't know if Missouri is a year-round legislature, it probably is substantially more organized because then you can, that's where hear people talk about the swamp. The swamp is created in a year-round legislature. Because
Right.
You have it's like you can create industry around it in that area. You know what I mean? And people can move there and live there and continue to do that all year round. So that's kind of one of the reasons I think that we aren't a full-time legislature.
so it's almost a good thing in that aspect.
I was just going to say, I didn't even think about it that way. It's kind of hard to make it your career when it's 30 days and not year long.
Right.
Well, it's like it is a good thing, but it's like, there's pros and cons. At the same time, like it's hard for like a normal person to
Someone who's a dad of
if
4
you're,
and
if you're like a coal miner or a teacher or something like that, it's going to be hard to just take a 4-month sabbatical every year to go do this. You know what I'm saying? And it's like if you are a teacher and you're going to go, say you quit teaching and you get elected for 3 terms and you're there as a senator, you're there for 12 years, and you don't win your next election. Well, now maybe you can go back into teaching, but you've got 12 years you don't have towards your pension. You're like certifications. It's like you're just out of the loop. That kind of thing. So it's like it kind of forces. I feel like it almost makes it to where only certain types of people can run.
people with money.
People with money, or or people that are contractors. But in Kentucky, there's not a whole lot of like that going on. Especially in the rural parts of the state, the poverty-stricken parts of the state. There's no small business. It's all like you work for the state, you're a nurse or a doctor, or you're a teacher. That's about it. Or you work in a coal mines.
Or McDonald's, Subway, Applebee's, that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it creates unique challenges, and it's probably one way I would say I probably differ a little bit from a libertarian type or a establishment Republican type is that like I'm not saying it should be a full-time legislature. I'm just saying that like I haven't been convinced that either one is superior at this time because like I know that most people would have a really hard time getting involved. That's all, the reason I will say this to give people a little, a little more context. Like I definitely am like blessed and lucky in my situation that I was able to do this. Like not only was I did I have like the ability to kind of to communicate with the country. Some of them are country, some of them are rednecks. It's like you got some cowboys and you got some cowboys and coal miners is what we got there in Kentucky. And but I also lived in Louisville for 12 years, so I can talk to everybody. I've also like one of those rare dudes that came out the mud and like actually owned my own business. I mean, I never thought I would do that. I just thought I'd be moving back home and coaching JV football and working at Walmart. I mean, I really did. I just kind of don't even know how I ended up where I ended up, But like, had I not owned my own business and been able to just like forego making money, I was in a business that residuals were coming in, but I still wasn't like building my business during that time. Mm-hmm. But if I'd have been if I'd been a teacher or something like that, I wouldn't have had
or working at Walmart.
Yeah, or working at Walmart, or working at Subway, or like
you still have the same passion though,
or Ford or Amazon. But it's like,
yeah, but not the means.
Right? True.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to spend. I mean, I did spend a heck of a lot of time. So it's like what I did and what I'm doing now, it's not realistic for people to think they can do that. Like my goal is to try to help people find little ways. Like every now and then, maybe 1 out of 1,000 can just go all gung ho like I did. But like the other 999, I want to give them like actionable.
But it's even more than that because you're the only civilian that's in the building.
No, I really am. I'm not, and I ain't even talking. I'm not even trying to like pump myself up because it's. I mean, you call those legislators, they'd be like, yeah, he makes fun of himself because he would tell you like, it's kind of ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous.
So I almost feel like Missouri is probably a little more they're more progressed in that sense, because Pat with the Missouri Freedom Initiative, they had multiple people going up to the Capitol, and they're I think from the picture that Pat has painted, it seems like more of a process to get involved in those types of things. Like when you're going into the Capitol of Missouri, you're actually going to meet their secretary, and you got to talk to them before you can even get access to the representative and stuff like that.
I bet they're a full-time legislature then.
Yeah, for sure.
That's definitely got to be what the deal is. And we actually just shot down a constitutional amendment that would have allowed them to call themselves back into session for like an extra 14 days. I get why some people didn't vote for it. I was teetering on the line going into the ballot, going to put in my ballot this year. But like, I almost feel like it's got to be the way it is now, or they just got to go full time.
Right.
It's like
there's no in between.
There's no in between what it is now. It's either switch or stay.
Well, and see, that's one of the things. I don't even know if that's if we even learned that in middle school. If Missouri was like a full time, you know what I'm saying? Like even as an adult, that I don't know that. And we've had Pat.
No, and that kind of pisses me off right now that I don't know that information. Can I find that information? Yes.
Right.
But I feel like that's something I should have learned or should know. I mean, that's my local government. Like,
well, so brings up an interesting point, and I've had conversations with people that are conservative and ones that are liberal. Like in Jefferson County, we have these things called magnet schools. So they're like they specialize in certain things. So in Jefferson County, our literacy rate is like 38% or something. So like our math proficiency rate is worse than that. And if you break it down based on like race and ethnicity, it's like if you're black, your literacy rate in Louisville is like 25% or something.
It's bad.
It's absolutely horrific. But we have a magnet school that specializes in aviation. So I'm like,
it's almost like a trade school.
Is that similar? Yeah, I was gonna say like we've got like Votech where you can specialize in like welding or mechanics or
something. Well, I wouldn't think of it like that because that's you being intentional about life and finding your skill set and like. There's not going to be a whole lot of kids that are going to end up flying planes around. You know what I mean? So I think it's more geared toward just like, again, if let's say it's 3 out of 10 kids can read, the other and 7 out of 10 can't. I'm like, what on God's green earth are we doing with an aviation program?
And that's like publicly what you're talking about is where the funding's going.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, this is an awful.
And so
thing.
my whole thing's been like, we're not even teaching. Like, I personally didn't know how our state legislature worked. Like we have no baseline that where we say like, okay, if we're not at this level, we're gonna start cutting things, and not like doing away with teachers, just saying we're not teaching this, so everybody's gonna start teaching this until we learn it. We just pass kids.
Nobody learns how to fly a plane until 8 out of 10 of y'all can read.
Yeah, something of that nature. Exactly.
That seems like an extra thing after everything else is taken care of. Then you can do like some bonus stuff, but you have to make sure everybody else is well educated enough. Y'all
need to know how to read. Y'all need to know how to math.
Yeah, I mean, it's and so that whole.
How many unaccredited like high schools are there?
There ain't no such thing as unaccredited. It's like you're just if you're in a high school there, you're like if you're in the Kentucky education system. Or Kentucky Education Association or whatever, like it's,
you're good to go.
If you're like outside of that and you're like homeschool or going to like even our Catholic schools there, they all play sports together with the public schools and everything. So yeah, we don't have any. I don't think we have. I'm sure there is some kind of accreditation, but it obviously ain't real. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because again, those are actual numbers from Jefferson County's website.
So is Kentucky considered like a rural state, right? Is that,
yeah. I mean, I would say that like it's one of I think 7 out of 10 poorest counties in the United States are there.
Jesus.
Are in Kentucky, and then like 5. I think it's like 5 out of those 7 are in Eastern Kentucky. So like,
so it's almost as if like the country's kind of forgotten about Kentucky type of situation.
It totally forgotten about it. But I talk about it on my show a lot. Like it's Kentucky. I feel like Kentucky culture is very indicative of like what's going on everywhere because it is very poor. I mean, like the holler where I'm from, it is the hood. I mean, I can go into the hood in Louisville and like I can survive there. I get along with everybody. I know how to communicate. Our cultures are the same. You know what I mean? we have similar beliefs and values, and with the same struggle with drugs and all that stuff. So yeah, Kentucky is absolutely forgotten about. But again, if somewhere in Kentucky is having mask mandates up until August of 2022, the rest of the country probably needs to freak out. Well, because Kentucky is supposed to be like a super redneck and like super white state or whatever. It's like
you would have like Trump country. Stereotypical move here, but you would have thought Kentucky never even had a mask in the first place.
Exactly, it's exactly what you'd have thought. But it's
quite the opposite.
It's not like that. We do have a super majority in our legislature as far as it's like. I think now we're up to 81 out of 100 of our state house is Republican, and 31 of our 38 senators are Republican. But like, as we all see nationally, Republicans and like culture war, constitutional conservatives are different. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so we have a very significant urban-rural divide, and the very significant like. If you watch my show, I talk a lot about like old school country club Republicans and Trumplicans. I don't know any other way to like put it, but just like kind of. I don't want to call us trashy, but we are kind of. I'm trashy. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, if you piss me off, I might key your car on the way out of here. Yeah, right? I mean, so it's like there's a wide range of, and we have a Democratic governor, because again, like it's a very cultural. Your state legislature is very like from where it's drilled down to like your area. Every area is conservative,
except for downtown.
Except for like Jefferson County, like or some of the districts there.
It's how Missouri is. Like everywhere in Missouri.
That's how it works in every state.
Yeah,
that's
Kansas City
in general.
And St. Louis are going to be your liberal areas, and then everywhere else is Republican.
But then, so we have a Democratic governor, and it's because collectively we're a state full of like union workers, whether it be Ford's a huge employer, GE's a huge employer, Amazon's hubs there, UPS's hubs there, coal miners, teachers union is like has so much power there. I mean, it's scary actually how much influence they have and how they influence everything.
So they're retiring at an early age with nice benefits.
Yeah, and then we have a very elderly population.
So much of the opposite of what's portrayed. Like teachers are completely underpaid.
No, I mean they are, but in Missouri,
teachers are underpaid.
In Missouri, they retire very handsomely. Like they retire. Like my sister's going to retire really. Like she did switch over to Kansas, but so you do regress in that aspect. But she will retire at it.
But mostly we have that Democratic governor because collectively we have all those workers that are very blue collar, and people that are worried about their Medicare, whether they're retirees, worried about Social Security, worried about their teacher pension benefits, and so. The governor, they're always running on those things, and so we end up getting Democrat. I think we've had one Republican governor in like 40 years or something.
If you were to say Kentucky, that surprises the shit out of me.
Yeah, same.
Have you ever watched the show Dope Sick on Hulu?
No, I know what you're talking about, but I have not seen it.
If you want to know what Kentucky, that's it. Or have you ever read the book Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance? Read that book.
You talking about the opioid epidemic out there?
But it's like it's impossible to separate.
It's probably only getting worse, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
because
it's impossible to separate like the opioid and drug epidemic from politics. I mean, it's like they're so intertwined, and you can like if you understand what's happening there from a drug standpoint, then you understand. It's like so much easier to understand the cultural aspects of why people are voting the way they're voting and seem to be very reactionary. You know what I'm saying? It's because like it's a war zone almost. I mean, like it's like life. I didn't realize until I grew up and met my wife, and she's this very like stable, loving, caring, thoughtful, intentional, driven person, organized, makes her bed every morning. You know what I mean? And I'm like looking back on my past, and I'm like, I didn't realize it at the time, but like I call my issues daddy issues, but it's PTSD is what it is. I mean, you're struggling with you just seeing so much drugs and abuse and. It's like sex or all around you at a young age. I mean, like, I tell people about this stuff all on my show. But like, it's not uncommon to lose your virginity when you're 12. I was 12. I may have just turned 13. I need to go back and look at the calendar, but I was a very young kid. You know what I mean? Like, but it's common. And it's just like,
so within knowing that, and like Kansas City has its own, drug addiction issues. You go downtown, you see a lot of homeless people, and even within the smaller suburbs, you see a lot of issues. Not like hardcore by any stretch of the imagination that I've seen, especially out where we're at in our zip code / county. We have our issues, but when you see this and you're involved in politics, what type of things have you thought of maybe doing to maybe combat it?
well, I mean, first of all,
Just hold on real quick. Sorry, I know you're about to go into it because he has a fucking brilliant idea, and we can get into this after he answers this because him and I were on the phone for like 2 hours the first time we met and talked on the phone.
And I have no idea what he's talking about.
And no, when he told me about what to do with teachers and weapons, it blew my mind.
Okay,
that was fucking like that. In my opinion, he solved it. So I'm curious on what your thoughts are on how to solve this type of situation.
Well, I mean, I just realized that everything, like, we just had to turn the entire paradigm on its head. I mean, like everyone has to think. We got to think outside the box from like every standpoint. Like for instance, like this past, we were in session. I said I was going under this mask bill, and no one was giving me any credit. And then literally, like, it was like overnight, all of a sudden, everyone started acting like I was this like a career lobbyist. And I knew every bill, I knew every person. Like I was like, you were giving me no credit. Now you're giving me too much credit. And you're like holding me to a standard that I cannot live up to right now. Like I don't know any of this stuff. My wife's texting me to get home, and because my kids are throwing poop all over the walls. Like you know what I mean? Like things are not what you think they are now. But look, one for instance, like the employer mandate, the vaccine mandates. I keep hitting the little thing there. I'm sorry. Everyone wanted to come at it from this like very like combative angle of like we gotta stop letting employers impose their will on employees and all this stuff. And I was like, wait a second. My goal is just like I don't want people to be able to be made to do anything. And like money is what influences all the free market stuff. So there was a bill in there that no one was even talking about. I was like, there's a bill right here that all it would do is remove their employer liability, like the employer immunity from like if they force you to get vaccines. I was like, it's going to accomplish both goals here from both sides. Like it'll make it to where like employers can still make you get the vaccine, but as soon as that bad boy gives you like you get sick from it or something, you get to sue your employer. There'll be rednecks lined up for days trying to get this shot. Like I'm trying to get me a lawsuit, baby. Like there'll be personal injury people.
Somebody will cough in my mouth for $5.
Yes,
you know.
Somebody. I mean, like I was like, so you're going to get people will get vaccinated, and the ones that get sick can get paid. So like, I think that's a pretty. But it's like everybody's they're so intent on winning with their words, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if it's your bill and it's your name on it. Like I'm just wanting good things to happen, and so people will quit like fighting with each other and stuff out here in the street. You know what I'm saying? And so you're trying to get people to, and so I'll still have people saying, but employers should be able to do it. It's their business. They risk their capital, and I'm like, don't tell me that we shouldn't be like rent seekers with the government. And the employers literally have a blanket, like they can make you do anything, and if it kills you, you can't sue them for it. Like how is that free markets? You know, like that's the check and balance is like, okay, make me get some shit. But if I get it and like something happens to me, I'm coming for your money. Yeah, and I'm going to get it. You know, that's the check. And so employers, unless they are true believers.
So is that what's in Kentucky right now that passed?
No, like that was, I think it would have, but it's, again, we're a part-time legislature. I'd spent so much time in one chamber that like, by the time things were getting over to the other side and I could get some stuff passed, I just couldn't get through the other side.
I thought that was more on a federal level.
Yeah, but I think locally, on a state level, you could sue the pharmaceutical company. But federally, if you wanted to take it to a federal court system, then you wouldn't be able to sue in that aspect.
Most stuff we think is federal. Very little of it actually is. And as y'all are seeing, like Missouri with the Second Amendment stuff, like states are starting to get back to this. It's like the United States, all it is 50 sovereign countries agreeing to stay on the same team. Like, okay, we're going to rep the same jersey. But, like, the minute our, like, values and, like, our goals as, like, a culture are unaligned, that you're technically, there's really, that's all that agreement to be on that same team is really all it's binding us together. Because our U.S. Constitution, it says if it ain't in here, we don't have that power. Like, the federal government.
And that's how it should be.
Only has these powers. Everything, and that doesn't mean that like there's no other powers. It just means that we don't have, it's not in our purview. Everything else is left to the states. So like states actually have way more, and that's why you'll see like in California, they're sanctuary states and they make their own, they call the federal government on their bluff and say, you ain't gonna come in here and take these illegals out of here and take them back to Mexico. So they call them on their bluff and the feds don't do anything. You know what I mean?
Same with marijuana. They were the first state to do. Well, I think they were the first state to legalize marijuana.
Marijuana is another thing that, like, said I'm God darn it, I'm a Christian conservative, but like again, my like religion is very like. I tell my preacher all the time, like, listen, I ain't the guy you ever asked like to speak it like a Bible study or nothing, because like if you get outside of here and you're gonna like hear my mouth and you're gonna be like, oh gosh, like you're probably gonna get fired from being the preacher after that for endorsing me as a human. But like, what were we talking about?
No, we brought up legalizing marijuana.
Okay, the marijuana, like everybody's so intent on like they're talking about medical marijuana and all this, and so there's this big like ideological debate there on like the argument is between like rural people and urban people is like, well, it's good for health or whatever. And I'm like, I don't even care about that anymore. Like what I care about is everybody that's getting locked up over like marijuana laws are all poor. We're not locking up like the drug kingpins. It's like, it's my dad that didn't have a high school diploma getting stopped, you know, on with taillight out, and catching a charge for having a blunt in his jacket pocket. Now he's got a record for like ever. You know what I mean? Or it's the guy that's,
unless you got the money to pay that.
Yeah. Or unless you got the money. Well, then you just
I've had two. I had one marijuana charge that got somehow a noise complaint.
But
But he's saying in Kentucky it goes even deeper than that. Like if you have a charge for marijuana for a blunt, for instance, it's even hard to get a job. And like you said, there's only 3 places to get a job.
So if you're living in Eastern Kentucky and you're 19,
if you're not stoned in Eastern Kentucky, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
Well, that's where we're at now, and that's where I'm trying to tell the city reps, listen, this is something that I can confront our rural reps with, and they can't deny it. And I can talk about it all I want because my entire family is about as opioided up as they possibly could have been. You know what I mean? Like, I've been through the trenches and I know what it does to families and I know how it destroys them and I know how I'm still dealing with it. And like, it was Big Pharma that did that to my father, you know what I'm saying? But like, or you go and you're 19 and you have cloudy piss and you applied for a job at Pick Pack, you know, and like the guy that owns Pick Pack also owns the meat distributor.
You got a drug test just to get a job?
In Kentucky, oh heck yeah, you will. If you work at Amazon as a seasonal employee, they're going to drug test you. And so, but if you're in a little place like where I'm from, there's 3 dudes that own everything. So like you think everybody's like every company's owned by it's different. Nope, 3 families own it all. And so once one of them finds out like, oh, dude, he's a drug addict, it might be 10 years later you're trying to apply for a job and they're like, I remember when old Johnny had that cloudy piss. I ain't going down that road. You don't even get an interview. You know, like, or if you're trying to be a truck driver, that stuff haunts you forever. You know, if you're working on a strip job in the coal mines, like once you get, because obviously people's lives are in danger there, but like there's no grace, there's no coming back from it. You know what I'm saying? And then like, it's just a spiral out of it. But at the same time, someone like my stepdad in the church, drives a church bus, you know what I mean? A Southern Baptist church. So that's how like Jesus he is. He's probably got a WWJD shirt on right now or a bracelet or something. Like we'll be 4-wheeling and we'll run up on a pot patch and he'll be like, we know we better get out of there because we might get shot at. And then he'll be like, oh, listen, old Danny Ray, he's a good man. He's a good dude, man. He's just trying to make a living. And I'm like, but if we tried to pass and make weed legal, you'd freak out. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And so it's just disconnect. And I think what it is people just don't talk to each other and like there's no rapport. We have a serious urban rural deal. Like I'll tell our urban guys that are Republicans, like I don't want your name anywhere near a bill that I'm talking about until I like get to my people down here and like let them know that I'm attached to it first. Because if they see your name on it, they're gonna be like, I ain't passing. That's city boy. He's crazy. I ain't doing that. You know what I mean? They think it's like some kind of ulterior motive, and there probably has been.
So it's like a different world when you go to the city.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah,
it's two different worlds.
I always hated that idea of like some civil death because of other shit that you've done in your past, even though you've paid your debt to society. You know, like let's say you get a drug charge and you go through probation, jail time, whatever, and then now that has to haunt you. Like, but I've paid my shit to society. Why does that have to haunt me in everything else that I've done? I've always hated that.
So
the little felony check mark you have to do, I get it on a government job. I totally understand it. That there's some like some interests that
No,
that
fuck
are
that.
wavering
Even
there.
then,
Yeah, even then.
But I could see it a little bit there. But like, man, if I'm just trying to get a job at McDonald's, why do I have to let you know that I had a felony record? I've already paid and done for that, to where now they can judge me for that.
What I would say is I appreciate your like your willingness to understand the nuance of like why the government may want that. But when you're talking about legislation, you have to think about what is like administrable, like what's sustainable, what's scalable. And so like it's impossible if you start saying this wishy-washy, well, it's kind of a government job. Then it's like somebody comes up with another, well, in this job, and this as a truck driver or whatever, it's like, and then it just ends up, you get a bill that doesn't really do away with records at all. And just like,
that's why I said the government thing shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter what job it is. You even, I mean, you make the point when you say, hey, do the crime, do the time. Well, you've served the time. You've done whatever it is you had to do. You went through the probation. You went through the jail. You went through whatever it was. You've done your punishment's not the right word, but you've done whatever you had to do. It should be over. There should be no more it haunting your future, no matter what kind of job that is.
Well, see, and you think about
but then you have some shit, like let's say you had misconduct sexually with like minors.
The nonviolent stuff, I think, is kind of the way you got to look at it.
Not nonviolent, but then you get into some sexual shit to where you're like, okay, maybe you shouldn't be put in like certain places, like around like.
I get it, like you shouldn't work in a fucking kindergarten.
Yeah,
I'm from Eastern Kentucky,
so
we don't deal with chomos. We handle that. That's a community policing matter right there. We'll handle that.
As
we'll
it
handle
should
that
be.
in Eastern Kentucky.
As it should be.
yeah.
But I mean, like and you bring up a good point though, Jesse. You talk about like how you lose basically citizenship almost for the most part,
civil death
for a felony, yeah. But in this aspect, they're not even dealing with a felony. Like they're dealing with just a cloudy piss. 10 years later, still not being able to get a job because
that's
three
ridiculous.
families own everything, dude. Like that's crazy. So how do you deal with that whenever you have three powerful families within that environment?
Sounds like Monopoly, by the way.
Yeah,
which is
It is like that.
So how are you able to get in there at a capital level and sway or get what the people want legislatively when you have three families that own it all?
Well, luckily at that level, like they can influence their whoever their one rep is or whatever. But it's like this is the thing where it's like there has to be some people like me, because like what is like scalable is most people can only really be in contact with whoever their elected people are, because it's just like they just don't have the time to write the emails and make the calls and all that stuff. But like someone like me, I have to know which ones are basically like savable or whatever. What's the word I'm looking for here? Like there's just no way they're going to be turned. You know what I'm saying? Like over to because there are rural reps there that just like, and city ones that like, there's just no reason for me to talk to them.
Set in their ways.
Yeah. And I kind of,
so I guess what I'm saying is like, how much influence do those three families have in that legislative area?
They could have a ton on that, on whoever their, House rep is or senator or whatever, but that's where it's like kind of it's magical how it's like, the House is based on it's like, it's all population based. So there's no one that has an outsized, like influence other than just like bravado and charisma and that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
So they can't control it all.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And so like, that's kind of where, I do try to be honest. I do think my skill set may have, set me up maybe a little more than what, because there are people in the movement with me that I'll tell you right now, I try to give them, like, I ask them to do things specifically because I'm like, if they start talking to people, they're going to make them run away. You know what I'm saying? Like they just don't have that community.
You can help in another way.
Yeah. Like I need you to do some research, you know what I'm saying? Like, and send me some like, but like, don't even send me everything you got. Like you need to get it and it needs to go through like two other ways to make sure it's like legit. And then
I think people forget that what they're trying to get across whenever you enter into politics locally, you're affecting a state that has millions of people, and people kind of forget about that aspect. It's not just you. It's not just your family. It's everyone that lives in that state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, But you did bring up a good point about what kind of power they have. The main power they have is that you'd think it would be legislatively and that they are just like this politician, but most of them have gotten elected because of their order abilities, or just the ability to speak in front of crowds, and able to, I don't want to say snake oil salesman. I mean, I don't want to feed into that narrative, and
That's how it is here too.
I mean, that's man. Go back to high school, prom king and prom queen or whatever. It's always a popularity contest.
Yeah, and I was prom king, so I'm talking trash about myself.
But that's just how the world works. Charisma and all that applies. Like popularity contest.
I don't know, man. How did Joe Biden win the popularity? He had no charisma, no speaking point when he ran for president.
In general,
sure, no,
popularity contests play a lot of roles in all kinds of elections, political or otherwise.
Completely agree. Obama was a great speaker, very smooth at talking. 100% that's how he was able to do it, barring some other things. But
the key is really you got to get in there, and you gotta. Obviously, I like to talk a lot. I was telling them, I don't do interviews because I would be talking the whole time, and whoever I was interviewing would just be sitting there. But you do got to put in a lot of time to to get to know the people's personalities, and people think what I'm talking about is saying you got to learn how to compromise, but I'm doing Oppo research on people, and I know I have legislators that listen to every show I do, so I'm sure they'll listen to this one. I'm literally gathering information so I can know how to manipulate them. You know what I'm saying? I try to figure out, but that's how you win the war of ideas. I mean, manipulation is part of it. I got to know what story you need to hear.
Is there a balance with your war on ideas?
What?
With what you said, it's a war on ideas, and if you're trying to not control, but you're trying to understand those legislators, is there a balance in your war on ideas?
Oh, so I think I said war of ideas.
Oh,
so it's there are ideas in there, and my goal is to try to make my idea. Now, obviously, my ideas will shift from issue to issue. But I got to try to make mine better. My story better than the other person's. And
I guess what I'm asking, your vision is for the people, though, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
I mean,
shouldn't that be every politician's view?
Yeah.
I mean,
but everybody has different morality.
So
your morality set as somebody that's all for the mask, right?
I will say this.
What's the argument against somebody that literally is just oh man, the mask is just playing the little bit of devil's advocate right here. That man, it prevents the spread of a virus that harms people. Why would you be so hard-nosed about not...
My pushback on that is always, listen, if that's, again, talking about scalable and what's legislatable, if that's the direction we go with mask, I mean, that argument could be taken in any direction. There are things that we do constantly that endanger other people, that endanger ourselves. I mean, not just with masking. I mean, it would affect every industry. It would affect every age group, every race, class. I mean, it's totally unrealistic. Putting that kind of weight on every single person. If you don't wear a mask, you're going to kill. You might kill somebody. A culture can't survive that.
Yeah.
But what about kind of a little bit playing devil's advocate once again? But they in their heart really believes that they're trying to do what's protective to everybody else.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
And
they're coming from a good place.
And there are several of them. Here's what I'll say. I got a lot of flack because I went to every legislator. I spent time, as much time as I possibly could with the Democrats. There ain't many of them down there, but and those were some of my best, my favorite meetings because they challenged me, and I feel like I would be able to tell if I was coming off as a genuine person or not, because I knew I was going to be going there and disagreeing with them. But my goal going in was it wasn't to convince them of anything. My goal was just to try to humanize the other, my point of view,
side.
So that you could say, listen, it's not you versus the devil. I know it's not me versus the devil.
That's what society does nowadays.
I know it is.
It's so polarized on.
It's not popular to say, because again, people think you're compromising, but I'm no, I'm not trying to win a game. I'm trying to do good, and psychologically, you can't win that. You can't do good if you're demonizing everyone. So now there are bad people, and like I said, I take note of those people, and I got a little spreadsheet. I make sure I'm this dude's the spawn of Satan. Stay away from him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there are a couple, and I'd almost call them out on here because they're that I mean, there was a couple of situations were bad, but they weren't Democrats. But like, and I will say this is like, out of all of them, I walked out of all those meetings, and like I knew, like they knew, okay, the guy that's behind this bill, it wasn't going after just masks was kind of petty, like. But I was like, I'm not asking you to take power back from school boards and put it back in the state. I'm asking you to just. I don't want you to, like, I think my term was, I'm not asking you to reallocate power. I'm asking you to relinquish it and to say, like, we didn't have this power in the first place, and we were punched in the gut by what we thought was a crazy disease that was going to be killing kids. We realized that's not what it is now. We don't want the power either, so no one has it. Like, decide if you want your kid to wear a mask, and decide if you want him to get a shot. Like, and I would tell them, like, if that's not where you're coming from, if you're mad at school boards, if you're mad at teachers, if you're mad at Democrats, don't vote for it. Straight up. Look them in their eyeballs. And, like, it just what it kind of again, like, those Democrats, I didn't get any Democrats to vote for it, but I had no Democrats stand up on the floor and
advocate against it,
and like it was like they were going against Trump or something. You know what I mean?
That's always been a big part of my own, like, morality, is kind of what you just said there, is if you want to do it, you can do it, but don't force it upon other people. That's all
I'm advocating for any of this stuff. And, like, people are so good at flipping it all around right now. Like, when I say I don't want employers to be able to make you get a shot, they think that I'm taking something away from an employer. And I'm like, no, I'm just saying that all humans should have the ability to choose.
To make their own decisions.
Govern their own life.
I was like, we literally have employers that employees will bring doctor's notes saying that they are at risk of because there's whatever one of the contents of one of these drugs is, and saying it's not smart for them to get it. And employers will say, tough luck. I mean, where
are the checks and balances at that point? That's insane. Yeah.
In what world is that, like, the right thing to do? So it's like, if that's free market capitalism, I'm a communist. I mean, it's like I don't want to live in that world, because they're both authoritarian. So like, yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't want to, like, live with a devil in sheep's clothes or whatever. What do they call it? What's what I'm looking for here?
I'm not good with those types.
But it's like, don't tell me you're like that we're on the same side because we're both Republicans or whatever. Whenever you legitimately think that the world should be just as authoritarian as Stalin. I mean, it's really what it comes down to.
So we'll regress a little bit or just switch directions. I want Jesse and Johnny to hear your take on the gun issues when it comes to teachers, because again, I think your take was really interesting, and we've had.
I have a question before we get into that real quick.
Yeah.
And I know this is probably a hard question to answer, but in the simplest way, what would someone like yourself who had never done it, you had a conversation with your wife in your kitchen or whatever, what is your advice to them, like, step one, if they want to get involved?
Step one would be stop watching and listening to things that are talking about issues that you have no impact on. Like, you're not going to be able to make any kind of impact on. So, like,
I'm not affecting the minimum wage anytime soon.
Yeah, or like back when it was like Roe versus Wade was everybody's big thing. Like, you as an individual, it was out of your hands. So, like, you're spending emotional and, like, mental capital on something. So, like, find what it is you're passionate about. Some people it's education. Some people it's Second Amendment. Some people it's some people it is lower taxes. It's whatever. Like, find your thing you're passionate about, and it's just like with sports. Find what you're good at, and then get involved with it. At the most local level. So if it's education, start going to school board meetings. I mean, it's that simple. If it's like Second Amendment, like.
But it's one thing to, like, go to those meetings, but where did your vision come from? And I know you talk about the amount of time that you had to put forth on your venture on what you're doing, but, like, us three could go to a school board meeting tomorrow because we're all, or Jesse and I, let's say him and I go to a school board meeting here in a couple of years because our kids are in school.
That shit scares the. Like,
but that's what I'm
so
saying,
much, because I'm going to have to do that at some point.
Well, we're most
I'm going to be very scrutinizing of the education that my son gets.
That's a responsibility, though.
No, it is. It's literally, it's like this weight that I have now, because now I'm obligated to who he becomes as a man and who he's exposed to, and all this. And
so what I'm saying is, let's say Jesse goes to a school board meeting, because my kids most likely won't be entering public education. If yours does, Jesse goes to a school board meeting, he sees a vision, but he doesn't really have a voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, where did you get the voice from? Was it just passion inside you? Or
I would say that you have to So you got to find what it is that you care about, like on a brass tacks level, and then you literally have to throw out any expectations that you have of yourself at that moment, and just go, because you don't know. I mean, timing is everything. I mean, it's like you made what you're passionate about right now. It's like it may not even be like a topic of it, like that people are interested in now, but it's still you still enjoy. It's still your topic. So like. Put in that time and get become the expert in it, so that when the cycle comes back, and because it's all cyclical, all this stuff is, and like Second Amendment or whatever is what is needed, then you're there, you're prepared. You know what I mean? But like, there's never if you're going in there because like you want to be involved in, enacting legislation, all that, like. You're just putting so much so much weight on your shoulders, and it's it's like education. If you start digging into curriculum, you are gonna. It's such an issue, like that you're not gonna be able to understand. Like, there's no way. There's no there's no shortcut to becoming like the alpha in the room in whatever topic it is. So
it's set in stone type of thing.
So what I'm saying is like you're gonna have to put in the time, and it's gonna take like. Just like with life experience, there's no shortcut to street smarts. You gotta be on the street a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
so without being involved in education, you just can't walk in there and say, "Hey, I don't want my kid learning this type of."
You can as an individual, you can remove your kid, but as far as like, you're not mentally ready yet to be imposing your ideas and your thoughts on the system because you don't even know how it works yet. You know what I mean?
Oh, we know how the system works. It creates workers, not thinkers. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we know that, but that's not actionable.
Right.
So you got to break it down. Like, what are we doing on a brass tacks day-to-day level in our schools to not prepare them? And so then you can go down even further than that. Then you got to look at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so like it's a huge deal. And if you go in saying I'm going to become the titan of education, it's like.
Start with a small goal and see if you can achieve that goal.
With the educational thing, I think it has a lot to do with us stepping in as parents and actually filling in those gaps that are like left there. Like I always bitch about they never teach real finance to kids. Mm-hmm. Like even on a high school level, like they were teaching me how to write a fucking check. Like I've never written a check in my life, but I still remember taking that.
But at those times when you were writing checks, those were applicable or whatever you want to say. Like I wrote checks when I was like 16, 17, 18.
So I don't know if that's just us wanting them to do our job too, to where, man, I don't want to have to come back and actually like teach my kids that, but like we want them taught like what we think that they should be taught. And then, they expect us to. I'm doing a terrible job.
Fill in the rest. I know what you're saying.
If they're going to be there 8 hours a day,
but we're going to have to do that regardless.
That's the thing. 8 hours a day is a long time.
If they're going to be there 8 hours a day, they have created this. We've created this system where like you got to have Elizabeth Warren actually wrote a book that's called like it's basically talking about how the requirement of needing like a two income household was just like a terrible. It's like it's like painted everybody or pushed everybody into a corner, right? So she actually, I don't think Elizabeth Warren was always a crazy person. She actually had some good ideas in that book. But like, if they're going to be there 8 hours a day, you should know that they're at least getting that you're not having to teach them how to read and how to like bounce a checkbook. You know what I mean? Or that you're not having to teach them the executive and legislative and judicial branch of the government.
Well, you put it the best way when you said the reading thing, to be honest. If my kid is in school for 8 hours, I shouldn't be required to teach them how to read. What the fuck else is the school doing?
Hold on. So
I'm not saying I shouldn't help.
But my question to that would be, and you talked about the how do you say the word?
Literacy rate.
Literacy rate, sorry, Jesus. The literacy rate in your state, and you talk about how low it is, and these kids are going to public education, and I could assure, you're there, the teachers have to be trying their hardest. There's a teachers union. They're trying to do what they're doing. So I feel like the literacy rate is probably a product of home environment. When you talk about an opioid epidemic that's within your state, that has a lot to play in it too when it comes to public education.
It's a home environment. I'll touch on that in a second. But like really, the literacy rate and the math proficiency, it has to do with we have this behemoth of like a bureaucracy inside of our government, and it's been infiltrated. I mean, I'm not being like conspiracy theorist here. Like,
yeah, don't do that on this podcast, man. We don't accept any conspiracy theories.
The diversity, equity, and inclusion branches of these places, like the social emotional learning, like they are putting things on teachers they are totally unqualified to do. And my mother's a retired school teacher. She'll tell you, like, she's not a therapist, right? Like, but they spend so much time and they're doing these things when they're not doing. Teachers literally aren't doing what they thought they were going to be doing. But like they're in the trenches. I mean, they're the soldiers. I mean, they're literally getting the orders from the non-commissioned officer. You know what I mean? And they're going out here and they're like taking down the machine gun. You know what I mean? Like that's like they're taking the high ground. You know, they're not up there building the battle plans. You know, they're not the generals. And so but they're the ones on the front line. So they take a lot of heat. And now there are bad apples and it's extremely, but like at the end, really they just take whatever system says, okay, here's what our focus is. Here's what we're teaching. And like, there's very little anymore, like where a teacher's building their own lesson plan or like bringing in their own like lesson or their own story for that talk about some kind of value they want to talk about. I mean, they literally like all day long, like it's laid out for them. They're getting spread, like they're getting PowerPoint presentations and like, here's the questionnaire you're asking them. And
it's all scripted. They're just robots too.
Exactly,
and just cogs.
It's just data mining. It's just constant data mining. And so the education talking about how do you enact change there, that's specifically one of the ones that I'm telling. It's like there's no one it's going to take a battalion of people that have no desire for publicity or to be given any kind of like reward on the back end because it's just, I mean, there's going to be no glory in it because it is so corrupt. I really don't know how we even fix it without just literally without just eliminating it and starting from scratch.
And you know what the scary part about that is we're talking about the state of Kentucky and how you were able to enact change at an easier way than it would be for people in Missouri. And it's even that hard to do it in Kentucky. Imagine going to states that have more funding, states that are year round when it comes to being in the swing of things, when it comes in a governmental aspect. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, let's say you go to New York, there's no shot you're ever going to change education in New York. Probably 0% chance of any type of change.
Oh, I'd imagine their teacher union is.
But you know what I'm saying? Like you're on a small scale when it comes to the state, and you have a sway on changing things, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're even saying it's hard to do it educational wise. Go to a state where it's harder. It's even going to be harder than what it is for you.
And again, so it's like it's extremely hard if you're thinking I'm going in to change the education. The main thing
not change, but you know what I'm saying? Like make it better.
Yeah, the main thing I'm trying to say is you literally have to just like, you have to drop all expectations at the door and just say like, I'm going to serve. Like I'm going about this and I'm going to take off all my like, drop my ego, like all the protections I have for myself, worrying about my own like, reputation and my own feelings and all that. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to admit like I'm a novice and I've waited so long and it's my fault. I should have been involved in this all along the way, but I wasn't. And so just like we talk about football, we don't win football games in October. We win them like when we're conditioning in June and July. And like you never know like if that last sprint is what won the game for you. But it's like, all I know is we won a game in triple overtime by a point and we conditioned a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just little things. And then again, you just got to go in it with a clear mind, a full heart and say like, you know, if I end up being I do know I'm very lucky in the sense that I've gotten to be the face of it and I get to kind of rub shoulders with people now and all that. But like at the very beginning, I didn't know if it'd turn out like that. You know what I mean? I was literally just trying to do something. I felt like no one was.
And it could have not been you. It could have ended up being someone else.
I keep telling people that, like, I'm totally aware that there may come a time where, like, it's just time for me to move aside. Like, my skill set is no longer, it's no longer the best fit. And, like, I'm just trying to tell people, like, that whole, like, that vulnerability and that, like, transparency, and it's liberating. And, like, it infuriates some people. And that's, like, but it's also magnetic. I mean, I literally just think that the people were like, this dude's the real deal. Like,
does that ever worry you being more in the spotlight and getting more criticism and like, because you're outward with your political like opinions and what you're trying to do with legislation, and then now you have people like looking at you?
What I mean,
does that ever bother you at all?
I mean, I guess it does, but here's what I'll say is like, I'm very aware of who I am. And so like, I know who my daddy was and I'm my daddy's son. Like I need as much accountability in my life as possible because I will manipulate the heck out of everybody. You know what I mean? Like I will just go through life. I won't work a day.
Be careful, man. CNN's going to use that clip against you in the future.
But somehow I'll always have a roof over my head. I don't, it's like, I'm just, and that's indicative of men from my culture, like Appalachian dudes we're resourceful that way. You know what I mean? We'll always have a bed to sleep in. But like for me, like I said, I'm lucky in the sense that my wife was attracted to my like honesty and transparency. And like, the more I try to hide who I am because I'm like ashamed. I mean, there's a lot of my life to be ashamed of. I mean, to be honest with you, like I'm rubbing elbows with people that are highly educated, highly like decorated, very successful. And I'm like, if I don't just put it all out there and like on the table, like it's like, I don't.
It's weird. You're talking about honesty and like politics.
Authenticity. Just being an authentic person.
Which a lot of those people aren't that you're rubbing shoulders with.
That within itself just like butts heads. Is like being honest and authentic about your past and stuff. Politicians spend millions of dollars like hiding who they were. Because heaven forbid that people find out that you were actually a human being and made some mistakes, which I've always fucking hated. Like politicians run in something and it's honestly like a breath of fresh air to find out somebody had a DUI.
So it's like,
and I'm like, oh, so you're just like me.
Well, so that's how, listen,
so you're just like me, man.
To your point, Herschel Walker.
You had problems too.
Do you hear the shit with Herschel Walker?
Herschel Walker's got a lot more
problems. Well, but like the main thing for him was like this chick came out and said like in the early 90s or whatever that like they were together, he got her pregnant and he's like, hey, get an abortion. And now people are up in arms over that.
And if he just came out, but like, this problem is
he's denying it.
Well, he didn't come out. Like I'm like, here's what I tell people. I try to be B Rabbit in 8 Mile. You know what I mean? Like
just be authentic.
I'm flipping the script on people immediately. Like as soon as I meet you, I'm gonna be like, probably it's a joke. It's like an inside joke between a lot of my friends. Within 5 minutes, I'm gonna be telling you my dad died of a drug overdose, just to see how you feel about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be telling you like I lost my virginity when I was 12 or 13. I remember I was like super young. That's how young I was. Just to see like
reaction.
And so again, it's like in a political world where everybody's trying to like hide things about themselves, even the politicians. Like I do think that
super unhealthy. By the way, can we all agree that that's a super unhealthy thing?
Oh yeah, it totally is because that's how you get backed into a corner to where you have to vote for something you don't believe in because somebody's got something on you.
Well, you're thinking about the whole thing you're running on is you as a person, and it's dishonest because you can't be honest about who you really are and the struggles and the mistakes that you've made. That's what develops a person, right? Mm-hmm. You make a mistake, you learn from it, and then you develop. But somehow in politics, you can't make fucking mistakes. You can't make a mistake and then develop from it and then become a better person, especially in a cancel culture that we live in right now. Mm-hmm. Like, heaven forbid you did something fucking 12 years ago that we don't align with
that
right
honestly
now
made you who
correct.
You are now and it's better.
But you learned from it. Us as a culture, no, it is completely opposite from that. Like,
now, like I will be honest. I'm in a unique situation where like my life experiences, because like I think I was telling Paul this, like I come from like a very white like rural area, but like I grew up in like the hip hop revolution, like the '90s, and my like best friends were black guys, and I was the white dude wearing like a FUBU jersey, I think the Mission color FUBU on. I probably still got it in my house somewhere. You know what I mean? So like my two best friends still to this day are like two black guys that both have like rap sheets. You know what I mean? Both spent years and years in prison, and I'm very honest with the fact that like our lives are very similar in the sense that like one of the differentiating characteristics of me we lived the same life, we did the same stuff. I never been to prison, so it's like I'm not saying it's because they were black and I'm white, but it certainly probably didn't hurt me. You know what I mean? Like, and so because back then it was very, very like racist at the time. So like, what your life experience comes into play. I will give some grace to some of these people that really haven't. I mean, if you haven't lived certain things, you can't relate. You know what I mean? Like the differences of the lives of Americans from rural Kentucky to somebody who lives in New York City. I mean, they might as well be one of them in Iraq and one of them in California. I mean, that's how different it is because it's like it's all relative to a certain extent. So it's like whatever the worst pain is you've ever felt, it's the worst pain you've ever felt. You know what I mean? And so I'll give them some grace there. And so like, I feel like that's one thing I've been able to do for them is like, I can, when communicating between other legislators that they don't understand, I can like take what they're saying and say, and put it into context for this guy and then bring what he's saying back to her over here. And like, since I have rapport with both of them and they both know like, okay, this dude's like, he's never lied to me. And he's told me I know way too much about him. You know what I mean? Like it kind of gets some indirect rapport for them. So like some of my deal has just been like right place, right time and drive. And like, again, I'm just in a unique situation where my wife is like, my wife's the real deal. I mean, like we talk about like intentionality as a parent, you know what I mean? Like she is on point from dusk to dawn. I mean, like just nonstop. I mean, it's annoying. It annoys me. You know what I mean? But she's real too, you know, like, and she knows that she couldn't relate with me, like, cause she lived a whole different life. And so I'm just lucky that she was like attracted to that whole, like if she can tell I'm like holding back in a social situation because I'm like embarrassed, she's going to be like, cut that out. Like go over there and make somebody uncomfortable. That's what she would say. I mean, so it's like, I'm lucky in those regards, but I think honestly, most
That's such a beautiful statement. Go over there and make somebody uncomfortable.
She would say that. That's what she would say.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Like when I told her I was coming out here, I wanted to do this show. She's just like, listen, if you're trying to do a podcast, you're going to have to like, there's this rites of passage. You're going to put some miles on the Suburban outside. You know what I mean? And so like, she's got my 4 kids at the house and I'm on the road, you know? So it's like, but I think most of us want that. And I think most spouses want that, but we just get into our lives and get into like the rat race, and it's hard to reset and say, okay, let's get back to square one here. Like we want our kids to grow up and be good people. So what's the first thing we got to do there? Okay, we got to get food.
She also sounds very supportive of your motivation in life and like your dreams.
I think she's kind of like me. Maybe she's self-sabotaging like me. I always tell, this is the joke I'd say, I'm like, I think she went slumming. You know what I mean? She was like, I'm going to go party. I'm going to go like, this dude thinks it'd be a good time. And my dad wants me to marry like a financial advisor. So I'm going to go like, make my dad afraid I'm going to get like pregnant. And then like, she got caught up and she's stuck, you know, like, so there's times rough. I'm like, maybe I hope you don't feel like that. She doesn't. But yeah, I mean, like she's definitely very supportive of all that. I mean,
anybody that had to go through the Series 7 to become a financial advisor, I don't want to, like, I'm not.
So I've actually done that.
Oh, you've done the Series 7?
I took my 63. I've been a mortgage broker. I said,
oh shit, my bad, man.
But again, like
you're the breakout.
It's just been like my whole life. It took me like, you know, I was like, when I worked for a State Farm agent. So I started out selling pull tabs at a bingo hall. Like basically is what I did for 5 or 6 years. Like even when I was underage, I was doing it for. Like,
and you good at pool?
No, I'm not good at any of that stuff. But I can like. I bet I've smoked more cigarettes than you. I can guarantee you that. Like working in that bingo hall. But like I started there, and then like Paul, that he knows, my father-in-law, hooked me up with a job at Northwestern Mutual, which is like a financial advisory firm. I had no business being there. I mean, absolutely none. I mean, it was like everybody had like their hair gelled up and everything, and like I just remember I won like an award. And got to go to like Milwaukee, and it was like me, LeBron James, and Wally Zerbiak were on an elevator together. And I was like, I shouldn't be here. Like I was like, I need to like, I gotta check out before before people find out, like figure me out here. So I'm gonna go out on top. And I was working for a State Farm agent, and then like got my own State Farm agency. And like late in the like recruiting game, they were like, you lied to us about you having a college degree, and I was like, no, I didn't. I was like, go look at my application. Straight up says like. It said like, where do you go to school? It said University of Kentucky, and I was like, I did not graduate. Like, I mean, I was like, y'all just got suckered in because y'all wanted to have like a poor hire, and like you wanted to check.
And then I did my job, and I did it well.
I did my job, and I did like so. Now you're pissed about it. You know what I mean? And so it's been a lot of that going on. I've been lucky in those regards, but yeah, very lucky in how supportive she is. But again, I feel like everybody, that's how their families want to be. And we talk about the parenting thing, and like, here's what I will tell people is like, all this is not politicians' fault. We're a lazy country.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, like
100%.
I tell people all the time that now, because again, now people will come to me and think that I'm like a swamp creature now. I'm like, I've been doing this for 11 months. I'm like, but I'm doing that. I'm coaching your kid in football and all this stuff. But guess how many NFL games I've sat and watched?
Zero.
Like start to finish. Zero. There's no time. Everything's too important. It's like I'm a huge Cats fan. Got Kentucky tatted on my back. You know what I mean? But like they start their ball games at like 8:00, and I'm like, dude, my kids are going to bed. Like, and I have no reason to be a fan if I can't share it with my children. So, like, I don't know if I'll ever be as huge, like as big of a Cats fan as like I was.
Become less for me too, man. After having 3 and 4 for you, it's even more. But with 3, it's even tough just to get it all going. Like when I have my brother over every single week for the football game. I'm cooking, lunch or dinner for us whenever the Chiefs are playing. I might catch half the game, but I'm in the kitchen cooking, trying to make something good, and it's in my kids too makes it less important. Dude, I was the biggest diehard Chiefs fan many years ago. But
I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life, but I am that because like it was like the one thing I had with my biological father's family. Like they were all Cowboys fans, and I would go over there like on Thanksgiving. I'd walk over to the house and we'd watch the Cowboys game and play outside, play a game of football out in the backyard, and that was like the one thing I had with them. But like I wouldn't have even wanted to be a Cowboys fan if my dad wasn't. And so it's like, what good does it do me being up at 11:30 watching a Cowboys game, like when my kid's asleep and I should be in there like trying to have sex with my wife? You know what I mean? Like, how am I benefiting? How's that benefiting society? You got a vasectomy,
right?
I did not.
Oh shit!
You
guys are gonna have 5, bro. You be careful.
My father-in-law tried to split me on it.
Oh, I bet.
And I was like, no, I definitely ain't getting one now.
Holy fuck, man!
I'm like,
you trying to fuck around and have 5?
I tell Whitney, I'm like, listen, in an apocalyptic scenario, they may need me. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like we can't.
You're not wrong.
I can't play God like that.
Well, dude, we're definitely over the hour. We're like at an hour and like 20-something minutes. I don't want to keep it going too long because people's attention span. So, tell us where we can find you, man. Like, I know you said it briefly earlier.
I do want to hear this gun thing, unless it's too long.
I can try to do it quick.
Yeah.
So basically, when it comes to we call them SROs in Louisville school or Kentucky, school resource officers, but basically it's like cops in schools.
Yeah. That's what they're called here too.
Right now, the way we approach this, instead of talking about flipping things over on its head, every school district, for the most part, is going out and trying to recruit brand new officers. They have to be current and active duty officers. And there's no you can't move from your current police department to the school police department without, again, foregoing your pensions and all that stuff. It's the bureaucratic mess. And so, first of all, my goal is when it comes to SROs, I'm not trying to deal with crime in schools or deal with adults that are still in high school that are criminals. They're criminals. You know what I mean? Police just arrest them. You know what I mean? My goal when it comes to police officers has always been let's get police officers in at a young age and get children that historically don't have many positive interactions with law enforcement. So that's my number one goal is I want cops in every elementary school giving fist bumps and coaching football. You know what I mean? And so you're not going to get a stat hungry 22-year-old recruit to build those long-term relationships because they don't even understand it yet. They're babies too. So first of all, we need to open it up to retired military personnel, retired police officers, and make it an easier path. But again, a lot of the things I've realized is there's no one size fits all, one perfect answer. And so one thing that no one wants to talk about is we have all these bodies in the school that are teachers that are already in there. So you either have one side that says we don't want them armed at all, and then we have the other people that are also equally as crazy, saying if a teacher gets a concealed carry, they should be able to carry in schools, right? Well, my thing has been, how about we just open it up to teachers and say, I'll talk about it on a Louisville scale. So we have 167 schools. We have 27 SROs right now. So
what's an SRO? School
resource officer. So the cop in schools. So what are we short? 130, something like that. I'm why aren't we opening up to teachers and saying, hey, if you'd be interested in serving as a dual teacher / school resource officer, we're going to open up applications for you. And then if you go through the application process or whatever, and it's a good fit, we'll pay you to go to the academy while holding your spot as a teacher. So you go through the academy, you're getting paid while you're there, you're getting paid to be a teacher. When you come back, you get paid to be an SRO and to continue teaching. And like, we're not having to bring in any more, we're not having to add to the, what we'll call a swamp, to like the, to the state. We're not adding more people there. So we're just kind of, these people are already in there. They care about the kids. They know the kids. They know who the people they need to watch out for. They know who the people are that are like, they can trust to, be informants or be CIs or whatever you want to call them. But we're always looking for ways to pay teachers more. They're already, according to the left, they're already in a war zone and like right in the line of fire. Why wouldn't you want to allow the ones that want to protect their fellow teachers and fellow students to do so while making an extra $40,000? And there's no one will even talk about it.
I mean, I'm on the same devil's advocate here.
That's interesting.
How does that solve the issue with what you said? Because you said there's two sides. How does that help with the people who are like, no, we don't want teachers armed at all?
But they went through an SRO program. They went through training on how to do it, and now that's why they're getting paid accordingly.
But you think that's going to stop those people who are thinking to themselves, nope, if they're teaching my kid math, I don't want them armed.
But there's an SRO in the school who's armed.
So there,
people don't use
then
logic,
fuck those
though.
people. I'm done with it at this
point. You got to find those. You'll find certain people that like are literally they're just arguing to argue.
Just to argue.
And like we have to identify those people, and then we have to ostracise them. And that's one thing that I'm not afraid to do. And so it's like, if you're not coming to the table,
if you're a brick wall, then what good?
If you're not coming to the table, like what's the word I'm looking for, as like wanting to contribute and wanting to make things better, then we just got to get you away from the table. But like that's where it's in my experience, and I've gotten some movement on getting some people to consider this, is like to get them to realize I'm not coming at this from like I think kids are bad kids and we need to arrest all of them. It's like, I think especially in the black community, when it's like it's white people on TV trying to get cops in schools. And so if you don't understand the black community and you didn't, again, like I ran with black, I know that black people aren't getting a whole lot of positive like experiences with law enforcement. Now it's not all cops' fault, because like I've been on a ride along and I've seen what it's like when they stop somebody on the corner and run their ID card. I mean, and seeing what the charges are. I mean, I've been both sides, but like I can identify and I can relate and say, listen, like it is what it is. Like, what can we do to make it better? My goal is that I want children to be in a healthy environment to like better themselves and like be able to worry about reading and like get out of this combative nature where they can feel that the administration in the building thinks the parents and the people outside the building are against them, and vice versa. Like, it's just not a healthy environment for anyone. And so my goal is like, okay, you don't want cops in the building, but you're saying you love teachers, that teachers are the best things since sliced bread. If there's one in the building that's saying, hey, I'll sign up and do this because I not only am I comfortable with guns, I want an extra $30,000. Why wouldn't we let them? It's like, and we're not going to fill that entire 130 person gap doing it. But if we can do 50 of them that way,
yep,
we're closer without having to find any new people or train any new people or like spend money, not just paying them, but training them. You know what I'm saying? As far as like getting them into the system and going through the background checks and all that stuff. So, and we've got legislators that are open to that. But again, it's like figuring out how to write the legislation, and that's where I kind of come into play there too, because they're not, they don't have anybody to help them with that.
My big issue with this is that you have this whole whether or not there should be a armed personnel, security, teacher, whatever in a school, or no, there shouldn't be guns, and you need to take guns out of households. It really never answers the question of why are these people doing what they're doing and why it's becoming exponential in society. You need to get more to this is always my thing. You don't get to the root problem of why you have these individuals doing these acts of like terrorism, like school shootings. You never get into that. And I feel like if we just delved a little deeper into these young influential minds and their household scenarios, like whatever it may be, maybe social media has a lot to play into it, as far as like online bullying, things like that makes especially like white young males aggressive. in schools to go and shoot up, because that's typically what it is. It's a white male.
Well,
that
you're
goes
talking
and
about America.
shoots up a school.
You're talking about America, and there's been other races,
but I just hate this
majority,
Band-Aid.
sure.
I just always kind of hated, and I'm not saying that's not a good idea, like yes or no to that, but it's always Band-Aids on
Jesse,
that.
there's no physical way to ever stop anything like that.
I don't
from
like
happening.
that answer.
You
I
look-
don't
you
like
look-
that answer.
you
I
look-
think that
you-
there's a better one
No,
that
okay.
we can come to as
No, hold on,
society.
hold on. You
as
look
far
at-
as the environment that comes in, we could do a better job.
Not when you have 300,
Overall.
when you have 330 million people that live in one country. I think it's almost impossible, especially within a country that allows guns to prosper in that type of country. Go to Australia.
So take
where
away
they-
the guns, right?
No. Go to
Just take
Australia
away
where,
the guns
where they
and fix
ban
that.
guns. Go to UK where they ban guns. They still have knife stabbings. They have.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, there's been 8 people dead by knife
It's-
stabbings. That's just human nature,
it's a-
bro.
no, it's
We're
a-
never going to fix it all. It's never going to be a perfect
No, it's a
utopia.
poor job. It's a poor job on our society.
We already
And-
know that. We already know that. But it's not a Band-Aid, dude. It's not a Band-Aid.
So-
this is something that's never been
I can
suggested
see-
before.
So here's what I'll say. I can hear what you're saying, and like that's why when I'm talking about SROs, I'm talking very little about like crime and stopping. Like for me, it's our I think almost all of our issues today are we don't have any relationship building skills, and so like the cop, for me, it's important to have the police officer in the building with a gun, because it's like it gives kids like myself that didn't have a very structured upbringing just like a constant like reminder of like what authority and like me being a kid is. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't step to a cop when he's got even if it's a taser on his hip, because I'm more like feel some pain there. But like then seeing that person I see that way interact with me and not acting on that the authority that he has all the time, and like getting in the trenches with me and coaching football. You know, like our SRO, my high school was our offensive line coach, and like I look back now, I'm like, if I would have ever done something out of step, he could have. I mean, at any given time, he'd have pulled his gun off and he could have like shot me if I was like attacking another kid or doing something. But like, it didn't even register at the time because Petey was like, we didn't look at him that way.
You saw him as your coach.
We saw him as our coach.
You built
But-
relationships, yeah.
So it's like you can't build the relationships unless the relationship is there to be had, unless everyone in there has the same goal of we're trying to bridge gaps in the community to like overcome some of these cultural obstacles. And because again, it's like most cops are predominantly white males, and then you're going into it. So, but the other misconception is that it's all school shootings. Like most of the crime that's occurring in schools never gets to that level. It's just constant like drug dealing, and I mean we have a.
I got an answer for that.
We have a fight every single day in Jefferson County, and like on like the most common schools that has fights in them are elementary schools, and like the ones that happen between staff and students are elementary schools. It's not even our high schools, and so like we just gotta like. I'm trying to get the conversation away from the whole like arresting people conversation, because that is where it's at right now. Like when black legislators,
That's a Band-Aid too.
When black legislators hear us talk about SROs, they think we're talking about arresting black kids. That's what they think, and it's a valid point. You know what I mean? So we gotta like again, what are we trying to accomplish? We gotta draft our message and like what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish in a way that like can get mutual buy-in. Yeah, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, like again, it's not going to go away the need that we're going to need. We need cops in schools, especially in like urban areas. We got to have them. But again, like I don't want like authoritarian cops in there trying to get like their DUI stats up. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you really think that every kid in a community, if they really got roof over their head, loving parents, or a loving community that really cares about them, opportunity, good education to progress into where they can have dreams, which is what every kid should have. A lot of those kids can't even have dreams because it's completely unobtainable. They got to deal with household issues, all this, and then they end up turning to crimes, or to do things that end up in crimes and lead to arrests and stuff like that. That's where I'm like, man, you got to focus on giving them more opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, they're like survival is what they're worried
and that's
about.
so unfair. That's so unfair for a young person.
It's a really hard problem to fix, though. You
No,
talk about
I
it being
know,
Band-Aids,
I know.
and we've talked about
but
this.
It's unfortunate.
It's not beyond. It's just so I say it's not beyond, and then I use impossible in the same sentence. It's so near impossible because it's different for each instance. Like you talk about shootings, school shootings and whatnot, and you talk about, oh, they could be bullied online. What do? Get rid of Facebook? Okay, there's a solution or a Band-Aid or whatever. Oh, they're not having a good home life. What do? Make sure they're raised better, or they shouldn't be in foster care. They should be adopted or something. What do you in that instance? Okay, getting away from school shootings, you have the kid dealing drugs in school. So you say, well, hey, let's not arrest him. Let's give him a warning the first time and be like, bro, you can't do this. You can't sell drugs in school. You can't do this. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, he's back doing it again. And you're like, okay, we got to arrest you this time. And you're not hitting the initial or the root cause of why are you selling drugs in school? Oh, so I can pay to have a roof over mom and dad's head because dad's a drug addict and mom left. There's always going to be root issues in society that are different for each individual case. And there is no blanket statement that solves it all.
It's not that they're Band-Aids.
The closest we can get, in my opinion, I could be 100% wrong, the closest we can get to that is caring about other people, which we've talked about in the past.
For sure.
You really want to help that kid who's, dealing drugs to keep a roof over his mom and dad's head? Donate, help that family, become better in the community and help that family. Make that your focal point. They're now your best friends. Help them out. You want to help the kid who was going to go in the school shooting because he's being abused at home and stuff. Get people involved with that. Help him out. You can't do it all at once, but you can help with little things like that. And you talk about relationship building. None of us do that anymore as a society. So you talk about fixing the root cause. In my opinion, could be wrong, the root cause is people not giving a shit about other people anymore.
Well, and just not knowing how. We've forgotten how to even begin a relationship. So I can already tell what you're passionate about. I can tell you right now. You went out and started coaching an inner city football team. You'd find yourself immersed in something you wouldn't care about anything else, because I can tell you care you understand the plot that these kids are going through, and you care about it. So you get in and care about that, and you don't have time to worry about Roe versus Wade anymore. You know what I mean? And so that's that's fine. And when I say find something, I'm not trying to be with people find your passion. Find something you really care about, and then just go see what you can do to help. And maybe it ends up being you're a senator one day, but most likely it's not. You're going to end up being a youth football coach that talks about youth football way too much and you seem like a loser, but those kids are going to grow up and you made a real impact. You know what I mean? So a lot of it's just timing and chance and fate, and some people end up being famous and some people don't, but the person that isn't famous
still helped a lot. Small scale can still make a huge difference.
When you can only internalize and really feel the what you did for so many people. You know what I mean? Somebody who Barack Obama can't really fathom what he may have done for the African American population. It's impossible for him to fathom that in his mind. But he's probably got 100 black people that he knows that have came to him and it really made an imprint on his mind, on his heart, that came to him crying or sent him a text or something. And if it was just that 100 people and he hadn't done for the other whatever how many millions, it would still feel like it's all he can process. You know what I'm saying? So I think, again, that's the perfect example of what I'm talking about. And it's going to be a lot of little things that happen. It's not, there's no one, but legislators will talk about how to promote family values. They're how do we do legislation like that? And I'm well, there is no one piece of legislation. How about you lower property taxes so people want to try to buy houses? You know what I mean? If it's $1,200 a year and you're making $30,000, who wants to drop 1/30 of their income on property? Even though it's still better than spending it at Walmart, it's just you're getting that dopamine hit when you go buy Madden. You know what I mean? So what are people going to do? And so it's a whole bunch of little stuff. And I do think when you look at the greats in life, I would say if you watch a Michael Jordan documentary or Tom Brady stuff, or you listen to Nick Saban speak, all the greats, none of them. Nick Saban today doesn't even know how successful he is, because he's just in the trenches. He'll probably die that way. He'll never even really be able to look back and say man, I won a lot of football games. I did a lot of good. I got a lot of kids in the pros. He's literally in the film room doing what he would be doing if he was unsuccessful. People talk about Michael Jordan, he was terrible to be around because he was so trying to be the best. He couldn't really see that he was, dude, you don't even have to work that hard, man. You're just better than everybody. LeBron
in the Last Dance, he even talked about how he was just making shit up to be motivated.
Yeah, to give himself something to like.
He would say another player said, and he even said, he was like, I probably, exacerbated what he said, but I needed that fire to come in and win that game, kind of thing.
He had the money; he could have just paid them to say it.
I love The Last Dance. That might be the greatest sports documentary
We're
ever.
close to 2 hours. We're like an hour and a half right now, so I don't want to keep it too long, man, because I don't want to lose people's attention span. There's a lot of good stuff that went on in this podcast. So again, John, I want to thank you for coming on Talk Junkies, man. But you got to let us know, man. How can we find you? I know you're on a lot of different platforms. What's the easiest way to find your podcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on video. You can find me on Rumble or on YouTube. I'm on pretty much any audio platform. So Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, all of them that I know of. And you just literally search Way Too Much. It's WAY, the number 2, MUCH, and then JRMC. That's my name, John Cox. Find me on Twitter, Facebook, all that. So I'm lucky, and my handle's the same on like all of them. So it's one of the
Way Too Much JRMC with the number 2.
Yep, Way Too Much JRMC. Yep.
And I'll put that in the link below where people can just literally click on it, or just send me a text of all the. I mean, I'll find it. But if I can get all the links at one place, that way if people just click on it, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Because we're not on absolutely everything, but we are in quite a bit. And there's a lot of good points within this time where we're going to get some good TikToks in there as well from this podcast. So I appreciate that, my man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys as well.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure. It's been a great, fun time, dude. I want to say I would love to have you on again, but I don't expect you to drive 7 hours.
Hey man, I'll come back out.
So if it's a virtual,
I'm crazy like that,
dude. If it's a virtual next time, that would be. I mean, for your kids' sake and all that good stuff, dude. 100%.
I mean, here's the deal: is I'm willing to do whatever I got. I feel like we are on the front end of a real movement right now. I mean, I feel like everybody thinks we've been fighting for years and years, but it feels to me like we're really just starting to get in the trenches like a year ago. Like just I see what's happening across the country and people actually getting involved. And so, my whole goal, like I said, I'm just trying to get people to get back to square one and be okay with it. You know what I mean? And just be willing to be vulnerable, be authentic, be, transparent, and just like commit yourself to trying to make one small difference and just see how it balloons. But like anything I can do to help give people a better outline on how to go about, doing things, I definitely want to do. I want to drive wherever I got to drive, but like do that and don't make any assumptions. That's the other big thing is, we all think these legislators, they all have all these relationships. Like if you all knew how many people in our legislature that I've spoken to in the last 7 days, like, and every one of them I've talked to, I've said, if you talk to such and such, I'm the one common contact for all of them. And it's like, it's humbling to say that. And it's like, may sound like I'm being arrogant, but like, it just is what it is. And like, I'm slowly coming to the realization that like, there's a whole lot of like, with great power comes great responsibility. Like, I feel like I'm getting to the point now, I'm going from where I knew nobody to where I feel like I have a sense of responsibility to everyone in my state that like, I don't know if anyone's ever been in this position to where they know this many people and have this many relationships and can like, get the right people in the same room with each other. And that all started literally said with my wife calling me a punk and saying, why are you like,
I thought she called you a pussy.
She did. She told me sorry, Whitney. She may have said other select terms as well in that. And then we got mad at each other and had like real good makeup sex after that.
There we go.
Hey, there you go.
Our 5th kid, I wish I could tell we had a 5th kid on the way, but I'd be, I can't do that. So yeah,
back on, man. Well, we appreciate you joining the show, man. We'll have you on again soon, and I'll be looking forward to watching your future podcast too over on your channel. So
I appreciate all you guys do here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Rock on. To all our junkies out there,
stay fly and ring the bell. I've never been on a show where all the headphones were working so well. It does change.